idtalks are a series of independently organized webinars that we started as early as autumn of 2020, and it always brings different ideas and inspiration on topics of inclusion and diversity. idtalks is created by Salto Inclusion and Diversity, and we are a team of 4 working on it regularly. There is Maria from Salto Inclusion and Diversity. There is Maria that is supporting with social media and communication, and Olaja, the most creative of us, that is making the visuals and the graphic recording of this event. And then that's me. There is me. This year, this autumn, the idtalks will have a closer look on stories that are discovered by the Strategic Partnership for Inclusion of National Agencies during their ID travels around Europe. And I'm very, very happy that our colleague from Salto Inclusion and Diversity, Kale, who is in charge of the SPI, is here with us. Maybe we'll say a couple of opening words before we start today's talk. Kale, you have the floor.
Thank you, Anna. Really nice to meet you all digitally. I'm Kalle Ristikartano from the Salto Inclusion and Diversity. And it's great to see so many people interested in this ID talks, these ID travels, which, like Anna already said, is a cooperation between Strategic Partnership on Inclusion network of national agencies working for the European Youth programs. Under the SPI, there is 26 national agencies and then a couple of Saltos working for this. And we're very happy to share with you what we have worked on. There are videos online related. And now with the idtalks, we're going to also have some of the people on those videos giving a bit more input.
Thank you, Kale, for the information, and we will also put the link to ID Travels in our chat in the meantime. So with this being said, we are ready to go for the first talk of the series. This year, we are going to have a closer look at how inclusion and diversity focused projects are formed, how to start an inclusive international youth work, where to find the partners, how to create an inclusive learning environment, and how to take a different young people's needs into account when designing inclusive projects and learning processes. And today we are on our first leg of our trip. We are going to talk about partnerships. The beauty of international projects is that we can learn from and with other organizations. So the process of finding right partners is very important for the quality of our projects. How and where to find these partners, what are the key to a successful project initiation. These are all the topics we are going to talk with Morgaine Green today. She's joining us from Spain, a youth worker with inclusive groups, international trainer and facilitator, a dear colleague, and a project manager that is focusing on culture of peace and care, with more than 10 years of experience behind her back. So Morgaine, maybe you want to also present more of yourself. You have the floor now, and we are all very attentively listening to you.
Hi, thank you, Anna, and thank you all for having me. I'm very excited to be here. I'm very excited to see a lot of people. I'm one of the people that signs up to idtalks and doesn't manage to come and watches it later and so on. So I'm very excited to be here live and also to see a few faces in the little boxes that are already partners. So yeah, it has been about 10 years that I'm working with Erasmus Plus, and I have been full-on participant as well. I have been a participant, accompanying person, and logistics, and also. So I think that hopefully what I have to share is coming from different directions, not just from the organization point of view. And I was really excited to be invited and to be able to share some experience and some tips. But it's really my own experience, and I know that we really all grow together. So I will share some food for thought, and then we will have some time to discuss and hear from your own tips and your own experiences. That is just as important. And now that I'm suddenly seeing so many people as well, okay, well, I will, me and my ADHD will calm down and I will share the first page of the presentation that I have to accompany me and keep me on track. So yeah, inclusive partnerships. I was thinking out loud because the first sort of, when I think about inclusive partnerships, I was asking myself, no, what's the reason behind? What is it that we want out of inclusive partnerships with each other? And so I think that it's threefold. I think that personally, at least, I think we have three main motivations. No, one is really that the participants themselves, more people can participate than would normally. So to reach a fuller and more inclusive participation in our projects, to care for the institutional relationships as well. No, behind the organizations, we're also people, and we often are forgetting that. So somehow the more inclusive our partnerships are and our projects are, also the more that we can care for each other and the people that are behind, and how much we get to know and trust each other. And in on the ground, social justice goals, the inclusive goals that we're working at in our organizations, that these can also be reached through our partnerships. No, and the first thing that I think to myself is, what really makes somebody an expert in this? No, I'm like, this is something that we're all learning as we go, and I really want to share first off as a disclaimer that whatever I'm gonna say is very much coming from the point of a person that's working in an organization. It's called Otra Escuela. We are 6 people. And so I know that everything I will say is, it's not always easy. On paper, all of the advice is great, and in real life, we live and we learn. So definitely this is something that comes through a lot of also taking risks and mistake making and so on. But yeah, so the first thing that I think is that participation is key, as it says here. Participation is the thing that continues to be the most useful and the most successful for me. And this is where my mind was going when I was starting, is we're so many people here already. And this wasn't something that I had thought of previously, but this is also a partner building activity. No, this is also participation. And I don't know if we can turn it into like dating app for partners or whatever, but then we have the chat, and then we have people that I assume are here because we're also interested in having long-lasting and care-filled and justice-fueled partnerships. So yeah, first thing that I think is really important and that we don't always have time, but is always useful, is to be participating ourselves in activities. And these are such as very specific and topic-oriented partner building activities or study visits that SALTO and national agencies organize, but also those training activities by other organizations. No, that way we also meet our partners and we get to know people on a participant basis, and we experience firsthand as a participant what's working for us, what isn't, and how to implement it, adapt it to our own coordination. No? And yeah, it doesn't always need to be a networking activity. Sometimes when we're participating, in a different topic, then we also get to know people through how they adapt to inclusive methods, or how we think, or how we share, or yeah. And this is something that I think I do often. I think every training course that I'm going to, or everything, I'm always coming home with new people and new partners, and it's very exciting now. And we just need to also be prepared that things change and for the unexpected. I think I saw that Najima's in the group here today, and she's somebody that I met on a Salto project, and they will be participating in our next project. And sometimes it's really exciting and it happens like that, and it's the same person that's gonna come to the project, the one you met, and they do make a huge effort selecting participants and open and inclusive and so on. And then other times we learn from not such great experiences as well, and maybe you meet somebody fantastic, but they are the intermediary and not the decision maker in the organization. And I don't know, I met a fantastic person and put me in touch with an organization, and it's the only one where I had 2 participants that were that disappeared. They went off to do their own tourism, no? And it was this one experience where you go, oh my gosh, I didn't expect this. It's changing the whole group dynamic. But after that, I started to do internal participant agreements and partner agreements. So all is good, and we learn from these two, I think. Yeah, and also when we are the partners, I think something that's very important is it's easy to get overexcited, but also we have to be selective and realistic. No, I think when we're also being proposed projects, we don't do any favors to our partners by saying yes to things that we can't really take on, or we can't really do in a way that we would like to. I think it's better to say no in advance than last minute, or have had other partners that instead of telling me they were unable to keep up with the project, they I don't know, some kind of subcontract to another organization that was actually charging participant fees, and I didn't know about this. So I think I come to it in a little bit, but I think that really also fostering this open and honest communication as much as we can, and encouraging that we trust each other to tell each other when we can't keep up. I think it's something that Anna says that I like also, is we're human, no? And again, I say we're humans behind the organizations, and I think number one is being able to tell each other what's really going on, and that way we can help each other. Yeah, I move on to ecology of inclusion. What do I mean by this is sort of ecosystem. No, I think that Audre Lorde says the sentence I have here of there's no such thing as a single issue struggle. We don't live single issue lives. And I think that in terms of our inclusion goals, when we are partnering, for me, it's really important to make sort of bold moves to include different diverse target groups on specific topics. No, I spend a long time working with young people with intellectual disabilities. I have neurodivergence myself, and I think that so often in this field you see people with disabilities participating in projects about disabilities and so on. I think that when we're making new partners, I also find it very important to branch out of what we know and meet other people doing other things, so that I think, specific examples that come to my mind, like a anti-racism training that we did with Maria. Well, we had people from the deaf community in the participants, and there's interpretation going on, or the people with disabilities that I worked with, that we build trust with an organization, and then is the moment to be able to ask that organization, hey, what other projects do you have going on? Because we're involved in the ones about disabilities, but we're not only this label that we have, and we'd like to be involved in other things, no? And actually, with all of the inclusion funding that there is and so on, well, we could go to projects about gender with people with intellectual disabilities, with accompanying persons. In this case was me doing translation and accompaniment. And when we came home, actually giving back to the others of the group and being able to start a local youth enterprising project of socio-cultural animation that is off the back of taking part in these projects. So making these links with the local impact and then using it to further midterm goals. Yeah, I think a lot of the time the partners that we're already working with have a lot of other projects and a lot of other things going on that we can also figure out how to ask and how to become involved from different points and perspectives. And yes, okay, so putting our money where our mouths are, I think this is something that also has to do with local communities and the things that we are doing with this money, no, that is for inclusion. And I'll sort of encourage ourselves and among my partners, I think is something that is shared, I guess, let's say amongst a lot of my network and what I see a lot of people doing. I think that in terms of pedagogy and methodology, we often are trying to come away a bit more isolated into communities and so on for the group dynamic. No, I think this is also a point of, we have public funding, European funding, that is also there to be used in a way that's upholding our values and those of our partners. So there are plenty of things that I think we learn from new partners, like supporting the communities and local projects that perhaps are not able to take part in Erasmus, and holding our projects in places where local communities can benefit, or from recent partners that I have, Transformative Collective, they are donating part of the funds to the people that they learn from, the different vulnerabilized communities. Other organizations that pay forward the organizational support for those that are selecting participants and holding inclusive processes with them before, and so on. So yeah, I think that there's many innovative ways that people are using the money and paying it forward and supporting communities on a local level, that this is something that I don't think is asked often, but when we share this information amongst each other, it also gives us a lot of great ideas of how we can be doing the same. And so trial and error with a safety net, I call this, because I think that it doesn't matter that every time it's already an organization that I know super well, that they're working in this way or that way, but it makes a difference when they are, no? So I think that it's about combination and balance. When we're confident in the methods and the approaches that we are using, we can integrate and adapt to 3 to 2 to 4 participants that have different expectations than we ourselves expected. And actually, sometimes the surprise is great. They also take home unexpected learnings, and they bring totally unexpected contributions to the project. But it's about being realistic, in my opinion, to what we can manage, no? And by being sure that we have other inclusion needs and supportive partners that are involved in each project, it means that it's okay to step out and to take a risk. Otherwise, we never find out. So maybe we don't do a whole project with just organizations who wrote mass emails trying to find partners, but we remember that behind those emails are also just people looking for partners, no? And that it's okay to take a chance. Otherwise, we never be surprised. So yeah, I think that one of the biggest points when I'm designing a project and looking for those partners among all of the partners it could be, is not about selecting individually the most this or that partner, but finding the overall recipe or the overall combination that will also be beneficial to each other. Like more experienced with less experienced, like mainstream target groups with more support needs, target groups, closer neighboring partners with further away, and organizations that don't necessarily already know each other. No, we can very quickly become part of this little bubble of internal networks, and we do each other a favor when in our projects we introduce each other, no, in a participative way. And in this way, I also want to mention that I include the point of inviting non-EU countries, non-program countries. I think this is also a inclusion responsibility and joy that we have, and we can share that by including Palestine in my projects, or Armenia or Georgia, who are the particular partners that I have. But yeah, we can do this. There are funds to do this, and it's not that difficult. No, I think that inclusion takes time and adjustments, and we need to consider things like planning time-wise for visas and for invitations and so on. But otherwise, it's something that is very accessible to do. We can both apply together because the non-program countries can't apply for their own projects without an EU program country member, or they are invited to our projects. But I think that this is something, when we talk about inclusion, to keep it in mind and to open those doors, because there's plenty of activities I know from Salto and national agencies, but they don't always have the budget to take all of the participants they would like to, also from non-program countries. And this is something that we can do. There are plenty of organizations that are looking for partners. Yes. So in the same way, I think that sharing these partners is something that we can celebrate. I think that it's fair to say that third sector organizations, we often feel like we don't have the funds we need, and this is true. But we also, I don't know, this sort of individualistic society that we are so often pushed into makes us feel like we're competing now, and certain rules and regulations, like, oh, you can only take part in 5 activities of each action, and so on, makes us feel like we need to compete, whereas really our focus is on inclusion and on collaboration. So I think that this big part of it for me is sharing and not gatekeeping our contacts. When we have a great partner for somebody, let's share it. And the more that we mutually share our networks, our contacts, and our mentorship, the better our own projects eventually, and all the quality of projects will become too. So word of mouth is obvious, but it's key. And I think not only in sharing the partners that we also already have, but in inviting others to join. No, I think in the current project that we have, we were very keen to do a project in Spanish for Spanish-speaking migrants all over Europe. And it was very difficult because actually these organizations are normally, or the ones that we are in contact with, are not necessarily already structured, already constituted, already signed up. And eventually we didn't do that project, but we did find organizations that were really keen to take part, that are doing fantastic activism on the ground, and that had no idea about Erasmus+. So if we have a great partner that just isn't able to be partner yet, then we can accompany them and show how easy it can be to join in and to sign up and to become part of other projects that are already existing. Yeah, I think it helps us to create a larger scale networks, no, and to be able to share our contacts with each other. I think sometimes it seems easier to be able to be in a project with an organization from Greece than from Galicia. For us, it's this sort of paradox, no? But actually, maybe our friends in Galicia are the perfect partners for somebody else. They're just not in Erasmus yet. So these kind of connections can also be made. How am I doing? time. Yes, so
you're doing very well with time. No worries about that at all.
thank you. Yes, great. So when I say practice what we preach, it's a little the same in this feeling like we're running, no, and we're competing and we're running and this and the other. I think that sometimes in this mindset of the deadline is coming and we have to find the partners and so on, is kind of changing the mindset to be a little bit more long term and a bit more multi-directional, this impact. No, I think that this idea of care and of the effort that we put into our relations is also to do with coming right back to the basis of our own teams, of our participant support, of our partners, this trust building, and realizing sort of where our strengths are and how we can cover each other's limitations. And I say this because I think that really is the first step before thinking about the partners and so on, is really like, what are we doing, and nothing about us without us, and who are we, and so how do we want to meet other people, is kind of, I think about our team and who we are, and we are different ethnicities and different migrant statuses and neurodivergent and LGBT community and so on, like working with different communities and therefore sort of being concerned about our own inclusion needs sometimes as well, and how we're looking after each other, and then how that translates to how we look after partners, because we're already online and long distance, no? And sometimes I think that these kind of partner relationships are also about using the same methodologies that we use in our trainings, that we use in other spaces, inwards like we do outwards. And if we take the time to have a meeting, even if it's online, we save 100 emails. And if we take the time to do a training together and get to know each other in a different way, then actually we learn something about that person or that organization that we didn't know from an application form. And this is sort of something to do with the principles of conflict transformation that we work in Otra Escuela, as well as sort of anything that comes up along the way in our long-term relationship. If we want to take care of it, is much easier if from the beginning we're applying these practices and philosophies of care and trust building and diversity among our own teams and respecting this between each other. And in the same way, I think that we also come to the methodologies that we use with those people that come to us in our projects. Like I said before, it's okay if some people come through a partner that you don't know, and if your methodologies are already fostering authenticity and belonging and exploration, imagination, creativity, critical thinking, it's not irrelevant. I'm going to say something, it's not irrelevant, but it's almost irrelevant. There's inclusion or support needs. Now we're already trying to foster a space where everybody feels belonging and everyone feels brave enough to ask for what they need. I think I say this in a way of like, there's no universal answers, so let's stop looking for them in a little way. No, like I think of there's a dance festival that actually is on the ID Travels videos that I do with a colleague. I co-facilitate for a colleague's organization, Ellie, who will be doing another one of these talks. And there we have workshops that so many people come and they choose different ones and they choose the ones they want, and it's chaos for the mind of an ADHD trainer, because you don't know if you'll have 4 participants or 40. You don't know if they will have these needs or those needs. But I think of one lovely participant that came, and she is a wheelchair user, and she chose these 2 workshops. One is tap dancing with me, and one is hip hop dance with a colleague. And she actually chose them for the opposite reasons. No, she said, in yours, you had these taps that were the metal taps for tap dancing you'd already made for feet, for hands, for this, for that. It was like everything was prepared to be able to go in these different directions of different needs. And the other colleague purposefully had 0 adaptations. It's all you do up to where you can, however you choose, however you decide, and the instructions are the same for everybody, you know. And just this one person chose totally opposite reasons for choosing to participate. I think for me, this was a life example of, we never know what somebody really is looking for. Sometimes we don't even know what we're looking for, and our conditions or our characteristics or our whatever it is that people know about us on a paper also isn't enough for them to know that. So I think it is important to be making and sustaining inclusive partnerships, but in order to be able to explore and experiment and take risks with these partnerships, it's equally as important that underneath we're doing the work of caring for our relationships amongst each other and caring for the methodologies that we use that mean that whoever comes, they will find their place and they will be able to participate in their way. And I go on to quality improvements. Yeah, I think this is one of the things that I said at the beginning. Like we want to do what's ideal, but then we come to what's real. And we would love to be writing all of these projects together. We would love to be having these huge long meetings in person with all of our partners to collaboratively write projects and so on. But we live real lives, and this is not really possible. So I think, or for us, so far it hasn't been possible. But I do think that there is a minimum quality that we need to be looking for, and it helps us also to get to know our partners and to be on the same page and be able to continue these relationships, is often asking the right questions, no, for the project writing, and to be able to keep this in mind for the design and for the fluidity of the relationship. These are things like their needs, their goals, their target groups. Whether in my opinion, there's very specific things, no, like, are you charging your participant fees because this is something that has a reason? Why not, to whom? And I'm not saying that it's not correct to, but I'm saying that there's definitely different reasons or situations, and it's something that because of our target groups we do not do. And so to understand that we are sort of selling the same philosophy, let's say, but it doesn't mean we need to be like-minded, but like-valued, no, is some way of finding why we're doing the things that we're doing as partners, and it doesn't come as a surprise later. Yeah, and general contributions and concerns, and these internal agreements with our local partners or hosts, with our international partners and participants. I think it is important to systematize these protocols, these responsibilities, formats of application forms, and so on, that we also learn from each other, no? And I think we see it in a lot is quite standardized, and then suddenly somebody does something new and you go, that's a great idea, why I'd never thought of that, I added in. But it is something that I recommend doing. I think I spent a long time with very trustful relationships and thinking, yeah, these internal agreements are for these huge organizations and for these big projects and so on, until something happens, you know? And then you go, maybe this wasn't communicated. And I think a lot of the conflicts that I've had generally are mostly miscommunications and things that if we'd managed to say in a different way sooner, then I don't think that conflicts are something to be avoided. I think that they're something inevitable, but certainly miscommunications are easy to fix sooner rather than later if we standardize these sort of tasks, responsibilities, and documents. It allows us to ask each other the right questions. And in the same way, it's also something, I think the preparatory visits is also something that adds quality to our activities, and something that we're not always able to do. And they're not always necessary, no? But where possible, I do recommend taking advantage of these, especially in inclusive or inclusion-centered project. And something from my experience that is really useful is to go the person who will be the accompanying person with the people they will be supporting. Yeah, I think in general it's also not always possible, but it is great also when accompanying persons can be people that are already known by the participants in real life, no? And they're already working together. I remember myself as an accompanying person, a lot of the accompanying that I did that was more important was before or after. So anything from role plays, from simulation airports, or mutual support mapping, and on return multiplier workshops or psychosocial support of coming back into regular life after these intensive and impactful projects. So when accompanying people can be those that will be there before and after, it is ideal. It's not always possible. But in this way, the preparatory visit becomes something very impactful, no? In the partner being able to share actually what is working or not working, and you still have some time to be able to address this. All of this, of course, for those that don't know, is absolutely financeable by inclusion support and accommodations, yeah, from the funding. And we come to practice makes progress. This is what yeah, we know what on paper what is ideal, and we find out on the way what is realistic. This is what I'm saying the whole time, perhaps to myself as well. Like, yes, this is you know, we don't learn anything from perfection. And actually, I think one of the biggest learnings is to truly embrace the mistakes and be able to implement the lessons next time. Can, yeah, lead us to improving our conditions or changing up the combination of partners or whatever it is that we need. These miscommunications, I was thinking, I had one potential partner that I'd never worked with before, and they came to a preparatory visit, and I realized how very different our understanding of even the objectives were. No, it was and I had this nothing against them at all. It's no judgment, just is a clarity in my mind of how sometimes we're not on the same page of objectives and so on. Was a professional inclusive dance school, and so when they came to the preparatory visit, understandably from that point of view that I wasn't realizing, they were kind of shocked by the facilities, no, of not having this professional floor and not having this sort of, and in their mind was very much a safety issue, which I can understand. And from my mind was but this is not about creating a professional dance workshop. Like, we will be doing many things within which there's body expression and so on. And actually this partner decided not to continue in the project, no? And this was a huge learning, because it's like there's a part of what is the word, of disappointment for them, for us, for the young people and so on, not to have not reached what they were looking for from our side, is disappointment in ourselves as well, but a huge learning in terms of actually what kind of partners are we looking for, what kind of communication do we need to write in order that they know what they're getting themselves into. How important was it to have this preparatory visit, and that they don't realize all of this when they're arriving on the project expecting something totally different. And to which parts do I communicate that this is how it is, and are you on board with it? And to what parts I also learned that you can hire a tatami floor, and it doesn't need to be something that your organization spends hundreds and hundreds of thousands of euros on, but this is something that can be done, and we will be doing. I think that yeah, the learning can go in different directions. And we just don't often know what is going to happen until it does. So we can mitigate by following some of this advice that I'm sharing, and all of yours that I'm sure that you have and we will share very shortly. But specific solutions come after specific conflicts. So I think this is yeah, perfection is colonial and it is capitalist and it is to be unlearned, and it's not our objective. So really, I think the point of embracing the imperfections, mitigating and creating methodologies that are as inclusive as possible and treating each other relationally as humanly as possible gets a lot of the work done, so that we're able to have conflicts, so that we're able to make mistakes and learn from them for better partnerships and for better projects. Like not throwing partners away. No, I've had sort of a point where I go, no, I'm not gonna work with this partner anymore because, well, for example, these participants that disappeared, and we explained these are places that could have been taken by other people that want to make the most of it. That's created a dynamic in the group that is an inclusive group, and these people have disappeared from an intimate group and now are coming back, and these are all things that need to be dealt with. And this partner responded by reporting us for saying we weren't going to reimburse them or something. We'd actually already reimbursed them. No, it wasn't the case. And there's kind of red lines where I go, okay, this is something that is not just impacting me, but the group and the people that can participate. But other than extreme circumstances, I think that normally we want to continue our collaborations. No, we want to know how we can do better, and we want to be able to share that with each other. Yeah, so actually, if we don't keep these lessons to ourselves, we contribute to each other's learning and improving too. So welcome mistakes with a safety net, with mitigation. And this is pretty much all. I finished just by saying that we know, those of us that already are working in inclusion, that one size absolutely does not fit all. Like I say, about learning from mistakes and overcoming them together. I think what is, I hope, clear from what I'm trying to share is that it's mostly about having an overall ecosystem of trust in ourselves and in each other, and sharing values through which we can have honest communication and mindset for adaptation, for improvising, for asking the right questions, and helping each other accompany these processes. I will stop sharing, and yeah, these are not advices that really come with, you know, specific data or links or this or the other, but certainly I would like to live by the advice that I'm giving. So I know this is all going to go to the magazine, and the examples that I give of different partners or different places and so on, I will also link to them. I think it's very much about making connections, about collaborating and sharing with each other, and I will also be open to any kind of contact or questions, both now and afterwards. And I would love to be able to give back the floor, and I think the final advice is that we grow together, so there's not just one person or one organization that has all of the answers, and I'm sure that everybody here has a huge amount to share, so I don't want to take up any more time. Thank you.
Well, we would be very happy if you took even more, because I think you just delivered the most quotable talk of all times of idtalks. In our secret behind the scenes team chat, we were discussing how many of those things that you said we could maybe integrate in our vocabulary, like this like-valued, not necessarily like-minded, and yeah, and talking about not learning anything from perfection, but believing in the progress. Thank you so much, Morgaine.
Thank you.
I am sure our participants also would like to ask you questions or say something, and especially that you mentioned it again. This series of idtalks is not about data, is not about research, and is not about know-how. It's about own stories and one of many ways to do things. And we invited people who are willing to talk about their experiences as our speakers, knowing that in our audience we have many more speakers potentially about each of those topics. And for this, we would like to offer now going to small groups, so breakout rooms, where we invite you to not only discuss maybe the input that Morgaine brought from her experience, but also share yours. And in 15 minutes, when you will be coming back to the plenary, you can bring back not only some questions for Morgaine, ideally just one per group, yeah, because we are tight in time, but also if you have any ideas, any reflections, any comments, please feel free to share those as well. So groups who would like to start, please, somebody from the group take the floor and bring in your ideas.
We discussed several topics, but I think one of the main was the role of a project manager in a consortium of partnerships, because the way a project manager will lead the whole communication, the whole project, it will affect the whole work of partners. And very often what we see that some applicant organizations, due to different reasons, cannot do that. And then maybe one of the partners could also step up and say, look, we have this resources, time, or people, or whatever, we can take over if you want. And that's also fine. We don't need, if something is wrong in the partnership, we don't need to sit and wait. Maybe we can also be proactive and offer this management skills, or if we have. So the question is if others do it, and any issues or tips how to work with difficult project managers.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, group number 1 and Anna. Anybody else from other groups?
I think I was in the group 3. I don't remember the number,
Please,
but I'm pretty sure about this. Okay. We discussed several topics too, but we can say 2 main points about our discussions. The first one is that a good partnership has the capacity to involve partner and partners who has to involve in all process of making a project, of writing it, of discussion, and blah, blah, blah. And every partner has proactive indeed, not just passive, but proactive, and sharing ideas, respecting each other culture and differences, because probably they come from an international, intercultural context. The second main topic is that is better knowing in a real life partner, and maybe through a youth exchange, a training course, something like this, because in this way you can see how and how the partner is, how he or she or whatever thinks, and blah, blah, blah. So mainly these 2 points.
I can just say thank you for my group, because they were just sharing their experiences, and it was really, really helpful for me, because I'm kind of new in this kind of things, and to listen all of the information, it was very helpful for me, so thank you.
Well, maybe Morgaine, we start off with these comments and questions, and if something else comes in the meantime, or also in the chat, we can bring it back to your attention.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for those comments. And hi, Roberto. I think we also know each other from the project. How are you doing? Yeah, this point of the project manager, I think, is really interesting, no? Because on the one hand, I think about my own organization, and I'm coordinating the Erasmus projects. No, we're only 6 people. We all take part in different tasks and responsibilities, and we tried to have a very assembly-based horizontal organization. But it's true that I'm managing the European projects, and yet realizing these human relationships and so on is like, okay, one learning that I'm having is actually, it's also important perhaps that the project manager is not always the one also doing all of the communication with partners and with participants, and also facilitating, and also because actually these things become contaminated by the time that you actually meet in person, no? So within us also being able to separate selection and communication and management in our own team, I think is interesting and not always possible. But this thing of our partners, managers, and what happens and when to step in, I think this is something that also I've had experience with, no, kind of this panic mode that you go into when you're not getting replies, or when people are not responding either in communication or in action to the agreements or to the needs, is sort of when to step in. And I think firstly, always is there in the back of the mind, like, okay, don't jump in with judgment, don't jump in with drastic changes, but we're trying to remember that we're all human when we've all got very chaotic lives in a very chaotic world, but we still have quality projects to uphold. So one of the things I try to always be very upfront with, hey, I really would rather be told a problem early on that we can solve together than you try to figure it out on your own and realize that you can't, and we're left with a bigger problem later. I think it comes back to communication and mitigation. Is when I have a brand new partner that I don't know at all, I do find it useful that either it's coming through a mutual contact, or I have other partners in that same country, or I have other colleagues or contacts in that same country, because if there comes a point where they're not responding and I don't want to switch out partner with another one, which is something also that we can do. I think always national agencies have different kind of ways of approaching things, but certainly when it has been a necessity because the partner is not responding, I have been able to change with a different partner perfectly fine. But before needing even to come to that stage, if I have other partners in the same city or country or other contacts, it is something also that I have offered, is to say, okay, we're not getting there, but I can put other things into action and other contacts into action, and we can, and for this occasion, we find these participants, and then we figure out what was going on with that partner and whether it's something to be resolved or whether it was an unrealistic participation. Like I said before, sometimes we just don't know how to say no because we'd really like to be involved, but actually we don't have the capacity to be putting that energy and effort into finding those participants, or we don't have them, or whatever the situation. Yeah, and I really like this comment of meeting in real life. I think this was one of the points that I was trying to make with participate and do projects and see each other and meet each other in the flesh and understand who we are and how we act. And this for Otra Escuela, for our organization, is something that we work a lot in peace building. And there's a model called Provention, which is effectively a lot of the things that we're already doing in non-formal education about the importance of names and getting to know each other and communication, appreciation, and so on. It's something that I can link in the chat in a moment or in the article. But is really important, is like actually to be able to address conflicts when they arise is much easier if I know that Maria was going to adopt a dog that was called Toby, or I don't remember all that. It's like I know something about her. We have a relationship that forms in real life. So humanly, I don't jump so fast to conclusions that I don't know. I don't jump so fast to judgments. I know these people in different ways, which is why I think it's also so important and impressive, like when somebody is willing to make the time to go to a project themselves. Like I said with Najima, I'm really excited she'll be coming to a project of ours next month. And this for me is really cool. It's like the response of, I have an organization. I want to see if we can if this is a time that we send people to Otra Escuela, or if we will continue collaborating in the future, and the best way to do it is to come yourself and find out. No, I think this is something that shows these intentions of actually caring for a relationship long term. And when it's impossible, I come back to this. I know Maria like the quotes, but if a meeting saves a million emails. And we live in this life where it's like, oh God, talking on the telephone, no. Oh God, another meeting, no. That could have been an email. And it's like, yeah, that there are a lot of meetings that could have been an email, but there are also a lot of misunderstandings that could have been a short phone call or a short meeting. No? And when we can't meet in real life, at least we see each other's faces and we remember that we're human.
Oh, thank you so much. And you just produced a couple new quotes that I'm personally taking on board. There are, yes, indeed, email meetings that could be an email, but definitely misunderstandings that could have been just one phone call. So thank you so much, Morgaine.
I take my own advice a lot of the time, I have to say it.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that
maybe today you are riding a quote-making unicorn. I don't know. So we are slowly closing our ID talk for today. And remember, in the very beginning, I was introducing our team and I said we have the creative one among us. It's Olaja, who has been tirelessly working in the background, trying to capture all the interesting ideas from Morgaine. And good luck with that, Olaja, really. So maybe if you're ready, we could share the first glimpse into your work with our audience today.
Yes, I'm ready. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can.
Nice. Finally, I get to talk as well, because I was really, as you said, tirelessly, because there was so many imagery or so many good sentences that almost didn't need filtering. So hopefully you can see now. So it's a bunch of useful tips. So yeah, thank you, Morgaine. I really like that you covered a lot of aspects. But yeah, from participating yourself, experiencing it firsthand, to assessing, backtracking, to having also a lot of trust in the process and not wanting to maybe have everything at the first go, and to understand that this is part of the learning and it's how it should be in a way. So I really like that at the end, the whole talk, like the basics of it, came down to respect each other, try again, be open, and just understand that it's better when you do it together, even if it doesn't go as you planned it, because it will never be as you planned it anyhow. And maybe if it goes like that, there is something wrong with that. So I really I took a lot of energy from your examples as well. So this is the first version. I will be rewatching and maybe adjusting some aspects from my notes, but this is for now what I took. So thank you.
Wow.
Incredible.
Incredible. So maybe I pass the floor back to you, Morgaine, to say a few words and also to close today's topic before I close today's talk.
I'm blown away by that summary and visual. Yeah, I'm just grateful to have been able to be here and share. I think that something that I take as well when I was thinking about preparing is like, some things when you're living in them day to day, they seem really obvious to share, but they're really helpful reminders to each other. And other things are very easy to say, but not so easy to be remembering to put in practice. No, so I think that yeah, we do the best we can with what we have, and hopefully we make some new contacts. My contacts will be available as well, and I'm like an open book. So anytime anybody wants to share something, exchange something, ask something, then I'm always open to new connections. And thank you for staying and for being here. I had a good time. Thanks.
And thank you for being an amazing speaker and such an inspiration. And also thank you and to all of your partners for doing all the great work. And we will have more great work shared with our audience, all all throughout this autumn. So thank you to Morgaine, and waiting for 4 other talks still to come this autumn, all connected to project implementation, different stages, different moments. So we hope to see you back in 2 weeks on Wednesday, 1 p.m. Central European Time. And you will receive an email and a reminder with the date and everything. So have a nice rest of your day. And thank you very much for all the inclusive and diverse work that you are doing with your young people and your organizations. Bye-bye.